Chapter 11 New Empires and Kingdoms. Backdrop. In the beginning of the 4th century CE, the political power and glory of most of the prominent post-Mauryan dynasties declined. Subsequently, a new line of rulers called the Guptas rose to power. The rulers of this dynastic line dominated the history of India for the next 2 centuries. Gupta Empire. Early rulers. The Guptas started as the rulers of a small kingdom in the present-day Bihar. The kingdom was founded by one of the early Gupta rulers, Sri Gupta. It covered some parts of northern and central India. Ghatotkacha Gupta, one of the successors of Sri Gupta, further expanded the kingdom. However, it was during the reign of his successor, Chandragupta I, that the kingdom rose to prominence for the first time. Chandragupta I, CE 320 to 335. Chandragupta I ascended the throne in 320 CE. According to contemporary sources, he entered into a marital alliance with the powerful Licchavi rulers of Vaishali and married Kumara Devi, a princess of the Licchavi tribe. Following this, Patliputra, the capital city of Magadha, came under his control. On account of this matrimonial alliance, his empire extended up to Prayag and Saketa. The control over most of the present-day Bihar, with vast reserves of natural resources and fertile plains of Uttar Pradesh, made him a powerful ruler. He assumed the imperial title of Maharajadhiraj. Samudragupta, CE 335 to 375. Chandragupta I was succeeded by his son Samudragupta. He ascended the throne in 335 CE. According to some historians, there was a war of succession between Samudragupta and another Gupta prince, Kachagupta, after the death of Chandragupta I. However, there is no substantial evidence to suggest this. Samudragupta was undoubtedly the greatest among all the Gupta rulers in terms of his feats on the battlefield. An inscription engraved on a pillar at Prayag, now Allahabad, known as the Prayag Prashasti, is the main source of information regarding the conquests of Samudragupta. Achievements. According to the Prayag Prashasti, composed by his court poet Harisena, Samudragupta's rule extended from the Himalayas in the north to the river Narmada in the south, and from the Brahmaputra in the east to the Yamuna in the west. A number of rulers of the present-day Uttar Pradesh, Bengal and Punjab accepted his suzerainty and paid homage to him. He extended his power up to Kanchipuram in the south. Though he did not annex the empires of the kings of South India, he compelled them to pay an annual tribute as a token of their subjugation. He maintained friendly relations with the Shaka rulers of western India and the Kushana rulers of Gandhara. Samudragupta also brought under his control a number of Adivasi or tribal kingdoms spread across the forests of central India. He performed the Ashwamedha Yajna that clearly indicated his power and influence. He assumed a number of imperial titles such as Maharajadhiraj, King of Kings, and Bhupati, world monarch. For his outstanding achievements as a conqueror and military leader, Samudragupta has been nicknamed Napoleon of India by the eminent British historian Vincent Smith. Other achievements. Apart from being a talented military leader, Samudragupta was a great patron of art and literature. Harisena, Vasubandhu and Asanga were some noted scholars in his court. He was an accomplished poet and musician himself. In some of the coins issued by him, he is shown playing the veena. Though he was a follower of Hinduism, he was tolerant towards other religions. He allowed Sri Lanka's Buddhist king Meghavarna to build a monastery at Bodh Gaya. Samudragupta was succeeded by his elder son Ramagupta. He was weak and incompetent. a Shaka ruler of western India, captured him. Ram Gupta's younger brother, Chandragupta II, defeated the Shaka ruler and ascended the throne in 375 CE. Chandragupta II, CE 375 to 415. Chandragupta II matched his father in terms of his achievements. In popular legends and folklores, Chandragupta II is known by nicknames such as Vikramang and Vikramaditya, someone as powerful as the sun. Chandragupta II was a great warrior and diplomat. He was probably the first ruler of the Indian subcontinent who successfully adopted the practice of matrimonial alliance to expand his kingdom. After ascending the throne, Chandragupta II started an ambitious military campaign against the powerful Shaka rulers of western India. In this campaign, he was able to defeat the Shakas. As a result of this victory, Gujarat, Malwa and Kathiawar became parts of the Gupta Empire. It also ensured his total control over the western coasts and seaports. This encouraged trade and contacts with the outside world. After his successful campaign against the Shakas, Chandragupta II proceeded northward. He subjugated the Prasikas, Persians, the Huns and the Kambojas in the west and east valley, respectively. Thereafter, he marched across the Himalayas and suppressed the tribal Kinnara and Kirata rulers. Chandragupta II established trade relations with Egypt and several other countries. A large number of gold coins were issued during his reign. Like his father, Chandragupta II was also a patron of art and literature. 9 famous scholars and creative geniuses of that time, known as the Navratna or 9 gems, adorned his court. The famous astronomer Varahamihira and the poet and dramatist Kalidasa were 2 of these 9 gems. During the reign of Chandragupta II, Fahim visited India. He was a Chinese pilgrim. He spent 6 years visiting Buddhist monasteries and left a detailed account on different aspects of life under the Guptas. He talks about Patliputra, Gupta administration and the society, religion and culture of this period. Later Guptas. Chandragupta II was succeeded by his son Kumaragupta. He was also known as Mahendradittya. Towards the end of his reign, a tribe in the Narmada Valley called the Pushyamitras became powerful enough to threaten the empire. Kumaragupta was succeeded by his son Skandagupta, who is considered to be the last of the great rulers of Gupta dynasty. He defeated the Pushyamitras. Soon afterward, the empire was threatened by the Huns. They were a nomadic tribe of Central Asia. Skandagupta defeated the Huns. However, after his death, the Huns overran a large part of North India, destroying towns and massacring people. The successors of Skandagupta were incapable. Soon, the vast empire collapsed and the glorious rule of the Guptas came to an end. Life under the Guptas. Administration. The Guptas had a well-organized administration. The king was all-powerful. A council of ministers assisted the king in administrative matters. The empire was divided into provinces or muktis, which were further divided into districts. Each district comprised a number of villages which served as the smallest administrative unit. Princes were usually appointed as governors of provinces. They were assisted by a group of officials called Kumaramatyas. The districts or Vishayas were administered by the Ayuktas. There was also a district council in each district which helped in maintaining an efficient administration. A council of village elders looked after village administration. The Gupta administration was decentralized in structure. The officials of the various provinces and districts enjoyed a certain degree of autonomy and independence. Earlier, the Gupta officials were paid in cash. Later, instead of cash, land was granted to them from which they could collect revenue equivalent to their salary. This practice weakened the king's position. The officials started exercising supreme power in areas assigned to them and tried to break away from the empire. After the decline of the Guptas, many of them began to rule as independent rulers. Social life. People led a happy, comfortable, and prosperous life. According to Fahim, the standard of living was quite high. Most people lived in villages and led a simple and honest life. Laws were simple and punishments were not very harsh. Agriculture was the main occupation of the people. Much of the revenue came from land. However, the artifacts and monuments of this period found at different sites suggest that they had mastered and perfected a number of crafts. It further led to the stratification of society into a number of occupation-based caste categories. The caste system had become extremely rigid. Besides the four main castes, many subcastes had also come into existence. The Chandalas, or untouchables, were looked down upon by others and considered impure. They lived outside the town and village and performed menial jobs for the higher castes. Women led a restricted life. They were treated inferior to men. They were married off early, and numerous restrictions were imposed on them. They received no education. They were discouraged from participating in social and political activities. Trade. During the early phase of the Gupta rule, both internal and external trade prospered. Trade flourished on the western coast with the ports of Bharuch, Sopara and Kalyan serving as major centers. The Guptas had trade contacts with Western Asia, Africa and Arabia. Tamralipti, Tamluk, a port on the east coast, handled trade with Subarnabhumi, Burma or Myanmar. Yavatvipa, Java and Cambodia, Kampuche or Cambodia. Goods exported from India included spices, pearl, ivory, etc. Perfumes, textiles and precious stones were the major items of trade. This made the Gupta kingdom rich. It also helped to spread Indian culture to these places. Religion. The Gupta period saw a remarkable revival of Hinduism. Most of the Gupta kings were worshippers of Vishnu and Shiva. However, they were tolerant towards other religions. Religious sacrifices such as the Ashwamedha were performed. Since the Brahmins performed these religious sacrifices, they held a very important position in the society. Idol worship became popular probably for the first time, and a large number of temples were built. The Gupta rulers encouraged Hinduism by giving donations for the construction of temples. All forms of worship and rituals were carried out in Sanskrit. The common man could not follow the language. Moreover, the sacrifices became costly. This gave rise to the Bhakti cult, encouraging selfless personal devotion to God without rituals or ceremonies. Art and architecture. Architecture flourished under the patronage of the Gupta kings. The temple architecture with different styles became very popular. Early temples had a large room where the idol or idols to be worshipped were placed. Over the centuries, temples became larger and larger. The temples constructed at Deoghar, Sanchi and Bhittargaon are very famous. Stones and bricks were used for construction and the temple doorways were very decorative. The Gupta age is famous for its murals, wall paintings which can be seen in the Ajanta caves near Aurangabad in Maharashtra. These murals depict the life of the Buddha. The seated Buddha statue at Sarnath is another fine specimen of Gupta sculpture. This statue shows the skills of the Indian craftspersons with metal. Literature. Some of the finest poetry and dramas in Sanskrit were composed during the Gupta period. Kalidasa, the most famous poet and dramatist of this age, wrote Meghaduta, Raghuvansha, Ritu Samhara, Kumar Sambhava and Abhijanana Shakuntalam. A number of other famous literary masterpieces were also composed during this period. Mritchakatikam was written by Shudraka. Vishakadatta authored Mudra Rakshara. Ashtadhyayi was a pioneering work of Sanskrit grammar composed by Panini. Pandit Vishnu Sharma compiled the Panchatantra, a collection of fables. Sciences. All branches of science made rapid progress during this period. The science of mathematics, astronomy, metallurgy, and medicine were very advanced. Astronomy. Aryabhatta and Varahamihira were two well-known scientists and astronomers of this age. Aryabhatta stated that the earth moves around the sun and at the same time it moves on its own axis. His theory was dismissed by his contemporaries as baseless and fallacious. However, we know now that it was absolutely correct. Aryabhatta wrote Aryabhatyam, in which he gave solutions to many mathematical problems. Varahamihira wrote Brihat Samhita, which is an encyclopedia of science. Mathematics. The numeral system was in an advanced stage. Indian mathematicians contributed remarkably to the field of mathematics and came up with the concept of zero, the decimal system, and the numerals. There are evidences to suggest that the Arabs learned the numeral system from people in the Indian subcontinent and then passed it on to Europeans. Though these numerals are known as Arabic numerals, they are actually Indian in origin. Metallurgy. The branch of science that deals with the properties of metals is known as metallurgy. The iron pillar at Mehrauli, Delhi, built during this period, is a great testimony to this fact. It was built in the 4th century CE. It has remained exposed to the sun and rain for over 16 centuries. Nevertheless, no rust has formed over it. Gold coins with beautiful designs issued by the Guptas also indicate the excellence achieved by the craftspersons of this period in metallurgy. Medicine. In the field of medicine too, an unprecedented progress was recorded during this age. Ayurveda, a system of medicine based on herbs and plants, was very popular at that time, and many diseases were cured with the help of this system. Doctors attended to patients in hospitals which were built during this period. Many texts on medicine were composed. Dhanvantri was the greatest physician of this time. Veterinary science also developed during the decline of the Gupta dynasty. There were a number of factors that led to the decline of the Gupta dynasty. The successors of the Skandagupta were very weak, inefficient, and incapable of keeping the vast kingdom under their control. Land-based grants in lieu of cash made the officials strong and independent. This proved to be a setback for the empire. Capitalizing on the weakness of the center, the governors of provinces revolted and broke away. The attacks by the Huns, a nomadic tribe from Central Asia, weakened the empire and led to its decline. New kingdoms after the Guptas. After the decline of the Gupta Empire, India broke up into a number of small kingdoms. 3 kingdoms were the most important among them. These were the kingdoms of Thanisar under Harshavardhana and the 2 southern kingdoms of the Chalukyas and the Pallavas or Pahalvas, Pushyabhutis and Harshavardhana. The kingdom of Thanisar was founded in the latter half of the 6th century CE by Prabhakar Vardhana. His dynasty came to be known as the Pushyabhuti dynasty. His son Harshavardhana was a powerful ruler who brought together most of the regional kingdoms of North India and founded a unified empire. Military campaigns. In the early 7th century CE, Harshavardhana became the ruler of Thanisar in modern Haryana. He succeeded his brother Rajyavardhana. Soon after acquiring power, Harsha united the kingdoms of Thanisar and Kannauj. He made Kannauj his capital. This was done to control the empire in a better way and also to control northwestern borders, where the Huns had been posing a threat to the center. Kannauj was relatively safe from foreign invasions. The Gangetic Plain could also be better supervised from here. After shifting his capital, Harshavardhana conquered Punjab, eastern Rajasthan, Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, Bengal and Odisha. Friendly relations were maintained with the rulers of Assam and Vallabhi, Gujarat. Harsha did not annex all the territories that he conquered. Some of the defeated kings continued to rule over their kingdoms as subordinate rulers. They accepted Harsha as their overlord and paid him a yearly tribute. During wars, they also supplied him with money and soldiers. Harsha established diplomatic relations with China. He tried to expand his kingdom beyond the river Narmada in the Deccan, but he was not successful as Pulakeshin II, the Chalukya king of Vadapi or Badami of northern Karnataka, stopped him. Harsha as a patron of arts. Harsha was a patron of art and writing. He was an accomplished playwright himself. He wrote 3 plays in Sanskrit, Ratnavali, Priyadarshika and Nagananda. Banabhatta was a famous scholar in the court of Harsha. He wrote Harsha Charita and Kadambari. There were other scholars in Harsha's court such as Subandhu, Mayur Bhatta, etc. Harsha patronized the famous Nalanda University, which was set up earlier during the Gupta period. He also gave financial support to this ancient seat of learning. As a result of Harsha's patronage, Nalanda prospered and became a famous center of learning. Huensong's account. A Chinese Buddhist scholar named Huensong visited India in 630 CE. Out of the 15 years that he spent in India, Huensong stayed for 8 years at the court of Harsha. He also visited the court of the Chalukya king Pulakeshin II. He has left a detailed account of the events of those times. Society. According to Huensong, people were simple, honest and hospitable. The rich lived in big, well-decorated houses, while the poor had simple mud houses. People lived peacefully. Most people were vegetarian and the use of onion and garlic was avoided. The caste system was very rigid. People were divided into numerous castes and subcastes. The untouchables were treated badly by the upper castes and had to live outside the city. Traders and craftspersons lived in the towns. Marriage and eating outside the caste was prohibited. Sati system was prevalent at that time. There was no veil parda system, but women's social status continued to decline. The main occupation of people was agriculture. They grew grains, pulses, fruits and vegetables. Apart from farmers and peasants, other important groups of craftspersons were potters, goldsmiths, blacksmiths, carpenters, which were hereditary and caste-based. Administration. Harshavardhana's administration was decentralized like that of the Guptas. Local officials had the power to take administrative decisions. The administrative units were similar to those under the Guptas. The whole empire was divided into provinces. The provinces were divided into districts, and the districts were further divided into villages. Each province was under a governor who was given land grants instead of salary in cash. The chief source of income was land revenue. Craftspersons too had to pay taxes. Revenue officials were responsible for collecting land revenue at the rate of 1/6 of the produce. The money so collected was used to ensure good administration, maintain the army, and give grants and donations. However, trade and commerce did not flourish rapidly. A number of cities declined at this stage. Harsha had a powerful army that included the infantry, cavalry, elephants and boats. Religion. Before embracing Buddhism, Harsha worshipped Shiva and Surya. He was tolerant towards other religions. He attended the Prayag assembly in which religious discussions and debates were held for many days. At the Prayag assembly, the Buddha, Surya and Shiva were worshipped. At this assembly, Harsha gave donations to the Brahmins, Buddhists, the needy and the poor. He also convened the 5th Buddhist Council at Kannauj that lasted for 20 The Chalukyas. The Chalukyas ruled over the region between the Vindhyas and the river Krishna. The Chalukya dynasty was founded by Pulakeshin I in about 535 CE. Their capital was at Vatapi or Badami in the Karnataka region of the Deccan. The most famous king of the Chalukya dynasty was Pulakeshin II. He was a contemporary of Harshavardhana. Pulakeshin II. Pulakeshin II ascended the throne in 610 CE. He checked the advance of Harshavardhana to the south and defeated him. He was threatened by the Rashtrakutas and the Pallavas. At this time, the Rashtrakutas were not very strong, so the main threat to the Chalukya dynasty came from the Pallavas. Pulakeshin II defeated the Pallava king Mahendravarman. Later in 643 CE, Narasimhavarman I, the son of the defeated king Mahendravarman, defeated and killed Pulakeshin II. He also plundered and captured the capital Vatapi. Ravi Kirti, a celebrated poet in the court of Pulakeshin II, wrote a prashasti describing his achievements as a ruler and military leader. This prashasti is engraved on the wall of a Jain temple at Aihole. It is from this prashasti that we learn about Pulakeshin's victory over Harshavardhana on the bank of the Narmada. According to this prashasti, Pulakeshin II ruled over a large area extending from the Arabian Sea in the west to the Bay of Bengal in the east and from the river Narmada in the north to the river Palar in the south. Trade. Foreign trade flourished with Iran, Arabia and with Southeast Asia. Pulakeshin II also sent an embassy to the Persian king Khusrau II. This strengthened the ties of friendship between the two countries. Art and architecture. The Chalukyan kings were great patrons of art. They built a number of Shiva and Vishnu temples at Vatapi, Aihole and Pattadakkal. A large number of Buddhist monasteries were also built. The murals at Ajanta give us information about this period's dress, court life, etc. A majority of the Ajanta paintings were created during the rule of the Chalukyas. The Chalukya kings also encouraged sculpture. Several statues and icons built under their patronage can be seen at Ellora. Today, Ellora Caves, located near Aurangabad in Maharashtra, is a tourist hotspot. Religion. The Chalukya kings were followers of Hinduism. Their important gods were Vishnu and Shiva. They also performed yajnas frequently to assert their power, yet they were tolerant of other religions. During the reign of the Chalukyas, the Zoroastrians who came from Persia were allowed to follow their religion. They built their places of worship called the fire temples, the Pallavas. The Pallavas rose to power in the 6th century CE. According to historians, the Pallavas were originally officials serving under the Satavahanas. When the power of the Satavahanas declined, the Pallavas started spreading their control southwards from the region of Kanchipuram or Kanchi near modern Chennai. They were in continuous conflict with the Chalukyas, Cheras, Pandyas and the Cholas. Mahendravarman I, 600 to 630 BCE, and his son Narasimhavarman I, 630 to 668 BCE, were two famous rulers of the Pallava dynasty. Mahendravarman I was the contemporary of both Harsha and Pulakeshin II. He fought a battle against Pulakeshin II but was defeated. Besides being a famous warrior, he was also a poet, a dramatist and a musician. He was succeeded by his son Narasimhavarman I. Narasimhavarman I defeated the Chalukyan king Pulakeshin II and captured Vatapi. After this victory, he took the title of Vatapi Konda or the Conqueror of Vatapi. He also sent successful expeditions to Sri Lanka. Learning and literature. The Pallava rulers patronized Sanskrit scholars and were also responsible for the growth of Tamil language. Kanchi, the capital of the Pallavas, was a center of Tamil and Sanskrit learning. Scholars such as Dandin wrote Dashakumara Charita, Kavya Darsh and many other literary texts in Sanskrit. Mahendra Barman was a scholar himself. He took the pen name Vichitrachitta and composed Matta Vilasa Prahasana, which was one of the most popular plays of that time. Architecture. The Pallava kings patronized architecture and sculpture. A number of rock-cut temples in South India were built by Mahendra Varman first. His son Narsimha Varman first laid the foundation of a new city called Mahabalipuram or Mammalapuram, where numerous temples were built. The Pallavas are credited with having built a number of temples, example Shiva temple at Mahabalipuram and Kailashnath temple at Kanchipuram. The temple at Kanchipuram is another example of Pallava temple architecture. It is famous for its beautifully sculptured interiors. Bhakti movement. Though the Pallavas were followers of Hinduism, they were tolerant towards other religions. Around the time when they ruled in South India, a group of people started to believe that religion was essentially a subject of personal devotion or bhakti to God. Some of these people were popularly known as Tamil saints or Bhakti saints. They were devotees of Lord Vishnu, Alvars, and Lord Shiva, Nayanars. They condemned caste differences and attacked the practice of conducting rituals and ceremonies. They traveled from place to place, singing hymns in praise of God. These hymns were written in Tamil, which was the lingua franca of the common man. The Bhakti saints commanded great respect in South India.